The exact window you just told to wait through 67 to 70 is the same window that Cliff is sitting in. Well, think about it. The advice says delay and get 24% more. The trustees say 22% cut may land in those very years. Those two numbers are almost a perfect mirror image of each other. The advice you have heard from almost everyone about Social Security is to wait until 70. Wait and your check grows. And honestly, it's good advice, but it's built on one assumption that right now, the government's own numbers say it's not safe, and almost nobody factors it in. So before you lock in what is probably the biggest money decision of your entire retirement, I want to show you the number that advice quietly ignores. A number the government itself is now projecting, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and it changes how you make the call. So let me tell you why this one matters more than almost any investment decision you ever make. When you claim Social Security, you're not picking a number for this year. You're setting a monthly paycheck for the rest of your life. And if you're married, you're often setting it for the rest of the longer living spouse's life too, because a surviving spouse steps up to the larger of the two checks. Get this decision right, and it's worth tens of thousands of dollars over a retirement, sometimes more than $100,000. Get it wrong, and in most cases, it's permanent. So there's no do-over. So this is worth one careful afternoon of your attention. And I promise you, it's not complicated. I'm not going to hand you a single magic age because there isn't one that's right for everybody. I'm going to hand you the one variable the usual math leaves out so you can decide with both eyes open. So here's how we'll do it. First, the real claiming math, toe straight, no spin. And second, the number that changes it. And third, how to actually make this decision for your situation, including a tool that simply didn't exist a few years ago. So a quick note on who I am. I'm Han Brown, and I built the AI brain and the Medicare brain. I read the boring government documents, and you don't have to. So let's start with the math, and let's be fair to it. Everybody repeats, wait until 70. And here's why they do. On paper, it's true. And the rules aren't mysterious. They come straight from Social Security. If your full retirement age is 67, and that's everyone born in 1960 or later, then claiming at 62, the earliest age that you can, permanently cuts your monthly check by about 30%. 30% for the rest of your life. So now go the other direction. For every year you wait past your full retirement age, Social Security adds 8% every year, all the way up to 70. So if you delay from 67 to 70, you end up with about 24% more each month than you would have gotten at 67. And that increase is real. It's guaranteed, and it rises with inflation every year after. But I want to be honest with you here. There is no investment on earth that hands you a guaranteed 8% a year just for being patient. So when someone tells you to wait, they're not wrong. The advice mostly passes what I call the credentials test. Is the person qualified? And does the claim hold up? Well, let me put real dollars on that because percentages get slippery in your head. Say your check at your full retirement age of 67 would be $2,000 a month. If you claim early at 62 instead, that same benefit drops to about $1,400. And if you wait to 70, it climbs to roughly $2,480. So the spread between the earliest choice and the latest is more than $1,000 a month every single month for the rest of your life. And it's actually wider than that over time because every cost of living raise is a percentage of your check. So the bigger starting check means bigger raises year after year, forever. And remember the survivor piece? Well, whichever spouse lives longer keeps the larger of the two checks. So for a married couple, that $1,000 a month gap isn't just about you. It can follow your husband or your wife for years after one of you is gone. And that's why people say this is the most important number in your retirement. They're right. And let me slow down on the survivor piece for a second, because it's the most overlooked lever in this entire decision, especially if you're married. There's a mechanic in the plain English. When one spouse dies, the survivor does not get to keep both checks. They keep the larger of the two, and the smaller one simply goes away. So the higher earners claiming age isn't just setting the higher earners' benefit, it's quietly setting the floor for whatever their surviving spouse has to live on, potentially for 10 or 15 years after the first one passes. So that's why in a lot of marriages, the quietly smart move is for the higher earner to be the one who waits, even if the lower earner claims early to bring in some income sooner. When the higher earner waits, you're not only buying a bigger check for yourself, you're buying a bigger, inflation-protected safety net for whichever one of you ends up alone. Almost nobody puts that on a calculator, and it moves the answer more than your birthday does. But watch the assumption hiding inside that advice. To actually come out ahead by waiting, you have to live long enough to collect the bigger check. That's the catch nobody says out loud. The break-even, the age where waiting all the way to 70 finally beats claiming at 67, lands somewhere around 82 and a half. So if you live well past your early 80s, waiting wins. If you don't, claiming early wins. That's the honest trade. And the standard math already knows about it. Now, here's a trade it doesn't know about, or more accurately, the one it pretends doesn't exist. Every single one of those calculations, every retirement calculator, every wait until you're 70 video, quietly assumes that Social Security pays you 100 cents on the dollar for the rest of your life. And the people who actually run Social Security are telling us in writing that this assumption has a deadline. In their newest report, the 2026 report, the Social Security trustees, that's the government's own board, project that the retirement trust fund, the piece that pays your benefit, runs short in late 2032. Now, I need to be really precise here because this is where the internet gets it wrong and scares people half to death. It does not mean Social Security runs out and sends nothing. That's not how it works. By law, when the fund is depleted, benefits get cut to match the payroll taxes still flowing in, and taxes keep flowing in because workers keep paying. The trustees estimate that cut at about 22%, so instead of 100 cents on the dollar, you'll be looking at roughly 78 cents. So if you fold in the disability fund, the combined projection is 2034, with about a 17% cut. And notice how this keeps moving. Just a year earlier, the report put the retirement fund's date at 2033. It shifts as the economy shifts, which is exactly why you check the current number instead of trusting a video from 2 years ago. Now, hold that next to the claiming advice and look what happened. So let's say you're 62 today. That shortfall lands right about the time you'll be deciding whether to hold out to 70. The exact window you just told to wait through 67 to 70 is the same window that Cliff is sitting in. Well, think about it. The advice says delay and get 24% more. The trustees say 22% cut may land in those very years. Those two numbers are almost a perfect mirror image of each other. And the standard calculator will happily show you the first number, your shiny 24% raise, while completely hiding the second. Okay, we'll take a breath because here's where I had to be careful with you. And here's where most of the internet fails you. The wrong lesson, the absolutely wrong lesson is panic and grab your money at 62. Well, that is not what the data says. So let me give you a grown-up version, and it means holding two ideas at the same time. Both of these are true. One, waiting still buys you a bigger inflation-protected check that also protects your spouse. That benefit is real and it hasn't gone away. And two, the size of that future check now carries a policy risk the old math ignored. Both are true at the same time. Sitting with both of these, instead of grabbing one and throwing away the other, is the honest place to stand. So let me be straight about what I can and cannot tell you because you deserve that. I can tell you what the law says today, and I can tell you what the trustees project. What I cannot tell you is what Congress is going to do, because a benefit cut that size, hitting tens and millions of voters who show up to vote, is exactly the kind of thing lawmakers tend to patch before it actually lands. So they've done it before. In 1983, they fixed a shortfall, a lot like this one, right up against the deadline. So the most likely outcome, honestly, is some kind of fix. But, and this matters, most likely is not guaranteed. And even a fix could look like a smaller cut, a later retirement age, or a higher tax cap. A partial fix that buys you years is still a win. You don't need this system to be perfect to plan around it. You just need to stop pretending it's frozen in place. So here's a shift I want for you. Stop asking, what's the single best age to claim? Start asking a much better question. What's my break even if the check stays whole? And what's the break even if it gets cut? Because when you run both of those, something interesting happens. For a healthy 62-year-old with longevity in the family, waiting usually still wins. The cut moves your break even, but it rarely erases it. But for someone in only fair health or someone single with no spouse to protect, that policy risk can tip an already closed decision toward claiming earlier. Same facts, different person, different answer. And that's exactly how it should be. So let me make that concrete with two quick examples. And to be clear, these are illustrations. Imagine someone who's 62, in good health, whose parents both live into their 90s and who's married. For that person, the longevity math still leans towards patience. Even with a 20% cut baked into the projection, waiting those extra years likely still comes out ahead over a long life, and it locks in that bigger survivor check for their spouse. Now picture someone else, also 62, but managing a serious health condition, single, with nobody depending on their benefit. For them, the break-even was already close to a coin flip before we added anything. Layer in the risk of a cut arriving in their late 60s, and it can tip the decision toward claiming sooner, toward using the money while their health is good. So two people, exact same rules, and opposite right answers. That isn't the math being wishy-washy. That's the math finally telling you the truth. And this is a part that genuinely changed in the last couple of years. And it's why I get excited about this. You used to need a spreadsheet you didn't know how to build or paid an advisor to model any of this. Well, you don't need to anymore. You can take your real numbers, your estimated benefit at 62 or 67 and at 70, write off your Social Security statement and hand them to a free AI tool and say in plain English, here's a prompt. Show me my total lifetime benefit at each claiming age. And if I live to 85, to 90, and to 95, and run it twice, once at full benefit and once with a 20% cut starting in 2034. And in a few minutes, you see your own crossover point under both futures. Not a guru's rule of thumb, not my opinion, your number and your life. So I'll put a free worksheet in the description that walks you through the exact prompt. One honest warning, and please don't skip it. Check whatever the tools gives you against the numbers on the SSA website, because these AI tools can be confidently, cheerfully wrong. Trust, but verify, always. So let me bring this all the way home. The worst age to claim Social Security, there isn't one worst age for everybody. That framing was also too simple, and now you know why. The real mistake isn't picking 62 or 67 or 70. The real mistake is making a lifelong, nearly irreversible decision using math that quietly pretends the system is frozen exactly as it is today, when the people who run the systems are telling you on the record that it isn't. The folks who are going to be fine aren't the ones who guess the perfect age. They're the ones who ran both futures, learned their own break even, and then chose on purpose with their eyes open. So here's one thing I want you to do this week. Go to the SSA.gov, log in, and pull your statement. Write down 3 numbers, your estimated benefit at 62, 67, and at 70. Then run the 2 scenarios, full and cut. That single afternoon is worth more than any rule of thumb you ever hear, including mine. And while you've got that statement open, write down one more thing. Which of you is the higher earner? So that one fact, paired with your health and how long the people in your family tend to live, drives more of this decision than the date on your birth certificate does. And what would I tell my own family when they ask? Well, the same thing I just told you. Don't claim out of fear, and don't wait out of habit. Look honestly at your health, your marriage, and the rest of your savings. Run both numbers and then decide, like the adult in the room, because you're the adult in the room and this is your money. Go pull the statement that one afternoon is worth more than any guess. I'm Han Brown, and this is the Han Brown Show. If you want to be the first to know when Social Security Brain and Medicare Brain guides go live, drop your email in the newsletter below. I'll see you next time.